Welcome to our tutorial on debugging web applications. In this session, we will cover the essential techniques and tools you can use to identify and fix issues in your web applications. No matter how experienced a developer you are, debugging can often be a daunting task. But fear not. By the end of this video, you'll be armed with the skills to tackle debugging head-on. The first step in effective debugging is understanding the types of issues you may encounter. These can range from syntax errors, runtime errors, to logic errors. Let's dive into some common types with examples. First up, we have a syntax error. This occurs when the code does not conform to the grammatical rules of the programming language. Here's an example of a syntax error in JavaScript. As you can see, there's a missing closing quote in the string. Let's run this code in the console and see the error message. Now that we've seen the syntax error, let's move on to runtime errors. These occur when the code is syntactically correct but fails during execution. Here's an example. Here, invalid variable is not defined, which causes a runtime error when we run the code. Let's try executing it to observe the output. Finally, we have logic errors, which are often the most challenging to spot. Logic errors occur when the program runs without producing any errors but does not behave as expected. Consider the following code. In this case, we intended to add the numbers but instead used a subtraction operator. The output will be incorrect, and it can be tricky to catch. Let's see it in action. Now that we have a clearer understanding of the types of errors, let's explore some basic debugging techniques. One of the most important debugging techniques is to use console logging. It allows us to output messages and variables at different stages of the program's execution. Let's modify our sum function to include console logs. By adding logs, we can track the flow of our program. Open your console and run the new sum function to see the output. Console logs are an excellent way to discover how data changes throughout your application. Another powerful tool for debugging is using browser developer tools. Let's focus on how you can leverage developer Chrome tools to debug your web applications. To access developer tools, right-click anywhere on your web page and select Inspect, or use Ctrl+Shift+I. This opens the Developer Tools panel. Navigate to the Sources tab to view your JavaScript files. Once inside the Sources tab, you can set breakpoints by clicking on the line number next to the code. Let's set a breakpoint in our sum function. When you refresh the page and trigger the function, execution will pause at the breakpoint, allowing you to inspect variables and step through the code line by line. Debugging through breakpoints is an incredibly effective way to understand the flow of your application and identify where things go wrong. Let's now discuss how to handle exceptions and errors gracefully. JavaScript provides us with a try-catch statement to manage errors. Here's an example of how we can use it. In this code, we attempted to catch an error if the division by 0 occurs. When we run this, it will log division by 0 to the console instead of throwing an unhandled error. Next, we will talk about using external debugging tools and libraries, such as Sentry. These tools not only help with client-side error logging, but also allow us to monitor errors in production environments. To use Sentry, start by installing it using npm. Here's how you can do that. Next, you will need to initialize Sentry in your application. Here's a snippet to demonstrate how to set it up. Replace your Sentry and defer here with your actual Sentry data source name. And when you call the catcher function, it will automatically report this to Sentry. Now that we delved into some advanced debugging techniques, let's summarize what we've learned today. We started with understanding various types of errors: syntax errors, runtime errors, and logical errors. We then explored basic debugging strategies, including console logging, using breakpoints and developer tools, and managing exceptions with try-catch. Finally, we touched on external tools like Sentry, which are invaluable for tracking and managing errors in live production applications. Always remember that debugging is a skill that improves with practice. Keep these techniques in your toolkit, and you'll soon be debugging like a pro. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest content. Until next time, happy coding and debugging!